Hello, today I'd like to go over chapter 10, scripting. So we're going to get to the if statement, conditional statement. While is a conditional statement that continues if certain conditions are met. Then going to the temporary table types, we'll see three types of temporary tables. One is called a local temp, second one is global temp, and third one is the variable temp. All these tables will be gone automatically by the system. So we'll go over these three types. Next one is the cursor. Cursor can save a set of records and update changes values by looking at one record at a time. Instead of having whole one set of value, it can customize the values and change the values by looking at each record. When you select from a single table, like that table returns 1 million records, you can look at one record at a time, and if the value meets certain conditions, then you want to update or do some kind of actions. You can do so by using a cursor. The drawback is there's a performance downside is performance. Let's get to the variable types. Set no count on is that sets the return value. You will sometimes see how many records returned on the bottom can be set by no counts on and off. So let's say if you set this on and it says set declare at I is a variable and that type is integer value, and you set the 10 on set the I value equals to 10. That's how you assign a value. Next one is same as before, is you do that on the single line. So you do this way. This is another option. You can do this or you can do the other way, which you prefer. Once you declare value, this is the string value, national bar chart 31. So the length is 31, and you can assign a value by using this. You have a value. This is a query that returns the value. So Judy Lu is assigned to this variable called employee name. And once you have that one, you can have this value too as alias names. So that way you can print out the value. Let's say if you do just this, you will not see anything here because you assign a value to this variable and the variable is gone. So if you run this again, you will see error message, must declare variable this. So in order to display this value, you have to highlight the whole thing and click the execute permission here. Execute F5, then it will run as a whole thing. So I'm going to run as this, then it's Judy is shown up here. So next one is you declare two values, first name and last name. This is length, 20 characters and 10 characters. You assign a value just like before, and you print out these two values. So the first one assign a value to first name, and second one assign a value to this. And then you print out this as first name, and this is first name, here column, and this value as last name. Instead of doing the two separate queries, you can do as a single query. So you declare value, first name, last name, and this time you're going to select the value from this employee table, but this column value is assigned to this variable, and this last name is assigned to this variable called at last name. Then once you do that, you print out this. This is the same as the before. You just have one select statement instead of two separate select statements. How to combine first name and last name. So now we have first name column and last name column. Is there a way to combine these two values? You can do that by using this method here. First name and you have plus sign here, and you plus sign, oops, first name plus last name. But you can do that since this is the both same data type, string value, so char value. You can do that by having plus symbol and with the blank space there. If you want to combine with the integer value, then you have to do the conversion first before you can do the combining with the integer value. Since this is both types are same as a string uh, character, you can do just using this. Why does it fail? Let's say you have a value and uh, to this. This one is a failing. It's a subquery returns more than one value. It fails because this one, by selecting statement here, this is supposed to return only one row, but it returns two rows, and you assigning two rows into one single variable. That's why it fails. So this subquery must return only one row, so it can be assigned to this. If it returns two values, it fails. Sales on this. So if the print statement batch and the prints out the second batch and select this customer equal to this, it fails. Where does it fail? Sometimes it's hard to hard to recognize the where it fails. Then you highlight this. First, go sign. This one will execute. Okay, first batch. So that's how you print out onto the screen. How about this one here? It's successful. So this one is the one that fails. But if you highlight both of them, it says it failed. So you first select statement is working, but first, second select statement fails because there's a missing R. So that means what happens? Well, you're running as a batch, meaning one of the statement it fails, then both will fail. That's what the batch means. So invalid batch. So if you change this one to be R, then it will work. Then you will have one and the second select statement. Both are working. If you have one of the statement fails, again, then both will fail. Even though first select statement is working fine, because second statement fails, it both will fail. That's what the batch means. So on here, print third, and you see on the all these values here. You can also do this batch and variable. You declare and type and you assign a value 10, and you print out the value there, 10. So if you try to print out this, it will fail because it will say declare variable as symbol sign. So if you may say, oh, I already declared on top here, so why cannot use this one here? Well, this one here, it fails because it will treat two separate batch, one batch and second batch, because there's a goal right there. So goal means that it indicates this is one batch and next one will be the second batch. So in this case, I'm going to create a view called this my view, and with this select statement there. Let's say if you combine these two and run it, this will fail. Create view and must this. So let's say if you run this only that part, there is already and this my view in the database. So it seems like this is working, but when you combine this statement here with this, it will fail. That means you have to add go batch. Then if you run as a single batch, it will work. Because you cannot combine this and with the create statement. It must be a separate statement. Must have a go symbol. Same here. Create table. Create means it's not null, then drop the table and create this. So this will work. Alter statement there. Combining these two, it will fail because this requires the go. Then it will work. So it's always nice to have extra go if you want that one. So for example here, that will work. Okay. Following success and alter, so you have a goal there, just like I added a goal here, then it works. So creating this, suppressing insert statement there. So now I'm gonna add the records into this T1 table default value go. So when I highlight this, it's gonna add 100 records into the T1 table. So this means the go and 100. So it will add, it go through the loop, it will add 100 records in it. Very simple way. Next one is if else statement, how that works. So if statement, so you're gonna compare with the first one here, year, system date. So whether that year is the same as not equal to the 1 plus 1 date add. So you're adding one date to current time. System time is the today's date. You're adding one day to the today's date, and whether is equal to the current time. So whether tomorrow is the same year as to the today's year. So that based on that one, if the statement is true, then today is not the last day of the year, because if you add 1 year and come out with a different year value, that means that is gonna be a different. Would be the last day of the year. So it's not true. So that's why it went into the else statement. So let's look at this if else statement. So if else. So this is first if, and this is else statement there. But also you can have under the else, you can have if else again. So if else and else statement there, you can have another if else statement there. So that means that if the condition is not met, then it will fall into this. And within the else statement, you can have additional conditional statement there. Today is not last day of the month. So if system date equal to be 1, whether it's the first day of first day or not, if it is true, then it's going to print out the statement there. So let's look at this, whether today is not the first day of the month, because you check the system date as to how do you know what value it returns. Maybe we can look at this, how to debug a code. You can have like this. That way it can tell what value it returns. So on here, by using if you do select sysdate time, then we'll return this value. And if you say date, extract date from this, today's date is the 17th, for example. Okay. So that's how you troubleshoot a debug script. Extract the ones you're not sure, put it in here, select statement, and run it. Now, while flow element. So we declare I as integer while I is less than 10, then print the statement. And if then you set the once you print that value, then you increment I by saying I is equal to I plus 1. There you go. Very simple. So it prints out the value 1 through 10. Okay. Now, how does break work? Let's say if yours while I is less than 10, and it will go through that one, and when it reaches I equals to 6, then what happens? There you go. It does not print out anymore. Break means it will terminate the loop while statement there. So when it reaches 6, it terminates it and it stop looping through that one. Let's look at another one. It's called continue. What happens when it reaches continue? On here, this print statement there, I do not see 6 there. How come I do not see 6? Well, while I is less than 10, I equals to I plus 1. And if the condition I is the next value, then it will print out the value here. But it's going to check if I is less than equals to 6, then it says continue. Continue means it will just skipping it. It will skipping this part here. It continues go to back here. So when it reaches continue, then instead of going to this, it will go to the top here and do the comparison. That's why you do not see 6 there. So let's look at this while statement there. This is a way to add 1,000 records into a table called number. First, you create a table called this, and you go through the I insert value. The I is coming from here, which is through the loop. So it will keep doing it until it reaches the 1,000. So that way, that means that you are adding 1,000 records into numbers table. Let's look at the what it has. Well, I'm going to drop this one here first, and drop the table called numbers. And if I run this again, it will not have a numbers table. So let's look at this one here running both. There we go. So it's going to add 1,000 records into numbers table called n, and the value is I, because I will increment one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then it adds the all the way down. The value is 1,000. That's very easy to insert values into a table using while statement. Let's look at the cursor. We briefly talked about the cursor, what the benefits are, and there's a drawback to this cursor. Let's look at this one, how it works. Add symbol, add result, and table. That means this is a variable. Data type is table. Now, after that, it's going to use a cursor. So it's going to go through read one at a time, and you're assigning value to C. This whole value, 637 records, are saved into this C cursor. Now, once you save it and you open it using OpenC, that means that this is how you assign a value to C cursor. And once you save the whole thing, open C means you're opening this whole table. And you're saying fetch next from C. So that means you're reading one records at a time. You assign one records into customer ID, which is this one first loop. It will be a customer ID value would be 1, and our query will be orders customer ID is 1. Order month would be this. Quantity would be this 38. Then previous customer equals to this. You can assign a value, this one to be equal to this. So that means that this previous customer value will be 1, and run quantity equals to be 0 there. And while fetch status, what this means is that if we can read it next one value, then fetch status is equal to be 0. When it reaches the end of the loop, when it reaches 637 and there's nothing to read, then the fetch status will not be equal to be 0. So that means while while statement is not true. So it exits the while statement there. So until it reaches the 637, it will keep going through this loop and do the calculation. So customer is not equal to be previous customer, then it's going to have a run value and assign the customer to this, and run quantity plus the quantity. So it's counting this quantity, whether if the same customer, whether this customer is 12, but if this customer is not same as 90, so then it's going to add the quantity for this particular customer. And once that is done, it's going to keep adding it if the customer ID is equal to be same as the previous customer. Then it's going to add it. Otherwise, it's going to do just to insert the value into the results table. And once that is done, it's going to print out the results table, order by customer ID, order this. So have 637 records there, and you will see the quantity is 38 because this customer ID is 1. So you will see you add these two values to add up to 79. You add these three values, 96. You add this value, 114. This value, 174. Then this is different customer ID, so it starts again. So this is how you, using the cursor, you're accumulating. You look through each value, and whether the customer is same customer, then you're gonna add it. So run quantity is generated from this using the cursor. You can do this whole thing using the 2012 um, rows unbound preceding and this shortcut. By instead of having the cursor, you can do generate the result using the 2012 aggregate function with the partition. So you have some quantity, and you see quantity is over this part here, customer order month, and you have this. So run as quantity. So this one is generated from this query, this function basically. Sum over partition by customer, order by order month, and you will have rows unbound preceding as quantity. So that's how you generate this column. temporary table. This is a local temporary table. You can tell it by using you see the pound sign. So you will see anything single pound sign means a local variable. If you see two pound sign means a global variable. We'll go more detail how the difference between global and the local. So you create a, if the temporary table exists and you're gonna drop the table, temporary table by same pound sign, then this is how you can create a temporary table. Create table, pound sign, and name of the table. That means it's local variable, local table variable, and insert into same as you do with the actual table. Uh, Temporary table means it will disappear um, once you're done with using it. So you create, insert into this temporary table, and these are the values you're adding into. So these value will add into this temporary table there. So once that is done, select statement there, and you're reading through, reading from this local temporary table, and the left outer join with by year, and cur dot order name is previous order. So this is a query we learned before. So I'm going to run this one here. There you go. Now you can read a few more times. It will not disappear right away. So you can read it, run it a few more times there. It exists, but if you're using uh, running this table from another session, so I'm going to run this again. But if I copy this and open new session, new query, then if I run it here, it will not see this one here. It cannot recognize the local variable using different session. So in order to read this one here, it must exist in same session. So session 1, session 2. Session 1 created this temporary table, so that way, that means it can read the temporary table within this session 1. Session 2 cannot recognize the temporary table because it cannot read the temporary table, local temporary table created by the session 1. Let's try again, this one here. Creating a temporary table, and I can add records. This is the global, you can tell this is the global temporary table because you see the 2 pound sign. So if you're adding this global temporary table, I'm opening the second session, and if I do run this, it will say add record added. So how does it work? Well, because it's a global temporary table, that global temporary table means it can be seen by the other session, session 1 and session 2, whatever additional sessions you create can be seen this temporary table. So that's the big difference between global temporary table versus the local temporary table. You can drop this temporary table, global temporary table, you can drop it. Another way would be a table variable. You create a table variable using as symbol and followed by the name of the table. So the benefit of having this is automatically it will be gone. Once the batch is done, this is gone. Just like any other variables you create. Say if we run this on here, it will show. But if you select on the separate here, it will not seen. Okay? So this table can be seen only within this batch. Not if you run as another batch here, you cannot see the one created by this previous batch. This execute statement here is the dynamically creating execute statement. You create a add SQL variable is the uh, chart value. The length is 100, and you're gonna create a string assigned to this variable, and you can say exec and this. That means it's gonna execute this statement here. There you go.